You're listening to Productivity Straight Talk with your host, Amber De La Garza. She is passionate, direct, and sometimes a little sarcastic, but always gives you what you need to succeed in business. Now, here's your host, Amber De La Garza, the Productivity Specialist.
Welcome, and thank you for listening to Productivity Straight Talk. Today is episode 36, Putting the Right People and Processes in Place with Josh Haynam. If you are an entrepreneur who wants to take consistent, massive, focused action in your business and life, then you're in the right place, and I'm so glad you've joined us. If you're new to the Productivity Straight Talk podcast, I want to share with you just a little bit about the different formats you'll be able to find. First, like in today's episode, I do entrepreneurial case studies, where I interview entrepreneurs just like you and me about what their business is and what is their entrepreneurial journey. And most importantly, what are their productivity challenges? How have they overcome them with strategies, tools, resources? And what are the benefits in helping them grow their business and or personal life? I absolutely love the entrepreneurial case studies because I often don't know what direction the interview is going to go. And so I'm learning along the way just like you. But most importantly, I love discovering and hearing other stories that are empowering and inspiring about why we need to be working on improving our productivity to increase our profits, stress less, enjoy life, all of those good things. So we unfold that in our entrepreneurial case studies. The other format I do is that I interview experts on anything to do with productivity, time management, some business topics that I think that are relevant for you, and I bring those on regularly as well. And then the other format is every other episode is a solo episode by me giving you tips, strategies, resources, and essentially trainings on how to improve your productivity to increase your profits. So just so you know, I know we have a lot of new listeners here for the first of the year working on their personal productivity and growing their businesses. And so I wanted to just catch everybody up on the 3 different formats that you can expect on this show. I am excited about our episode today because you're going to meet our guest, Josh Haynam. Josh Haynam is the co-founder of Interact Quiz Builder, a tool used by more than 30,000 businesses, including the American Red Cross, Home Depot, and Forbes. He's probably seen more quizzes than any other human on earth right now. Josh started Interact with no outside funding, and it's been a typical 4-year overnight success story. And you'll hear all about that inside our episode today. When listening in on my conversation with Josh, you will discover the powerful outcomes of utilizing processes consistently, how to continually beat regression and get the results you want, the benefits of stepping away from your business for a little while, how time blocking has enabled Josh to get more done in an hour than he used to get done all day, and so much more. This was a phenomenal interview. And once you listen, you will hear that he does a lot of interviews, and it shows. It shows because he really cares about the content that he's delivering. He's very smooth. It was just a treat to really get to know Josh and hear his story and really share some amazing nuggets on how we can implement some of the same things that he has learned over the last 4.5 years of growing his business. So let's dive right in and meet Josh. Hello, Josh, and welcome to Productivity Straight Talk. How are you doing today?
I'm doing really well. Thank you for having me.
Oh, I'm so happy to have you here. I'm really excited for what you have in store for our listeners today. I got a little glimpse into it, but I really like going through the same journey at the same time as our listeners. So I think this will be a very interesting conversation, exploring your success as a business owner, your challenges, and well, I'm sure you have some great productivity tips for us today.
Yeah, lots of successes and failures, and the productivity tips that have come out of that are real and raw. They're based on actual struggles that I've had to work through and the things that I've put in place to help mitigate some of those. And it's an ongoing journey. So it's kind of jumping in at the current state that I'm at, but there's a lot to be learned as well. So it's kind of a fun place to be.
All right, awesome. So let's start out by giving our listeners a glimpse into your business. So what is your business and who are you? Like, tell us a little bit more about you, other than the bio that I just shared with everybody.
Yeah, definitely. So the business is a tool for creating quizzes like the ones that you see all over Facebook. So the what type of coffee are you? Which Disney princess are you? All that kind of stuff. And businesses use those as a marketing tool. So they want to reach a broader audience. Quizzes are a great way to reach people because people love taking quizzes. And then the companies create those types of quizzes. They share them out onto Facebook. They put them on their website, that kind of stuff. And then their audience comes and take those quizzes. And as part of the quiz, the company can ask for an email address. So enter your email to see your results, and we'll follow up with some personalized things. And it's a way for the company to not only draw people in, but then also get them on the email list so that they can send them further stuff in the future and make more sales. So that is the tool. It's been a long journey. We're almost 5 years into the business, which is a really long time in the tech world. And it's just slowly grown until this year it kind of exploded, and we now work with 40,000 brands. So it's even increased from the last time that my bio was written a few months ago. So 40,000 companies around the world, Red Cross, Forbes, United Nations, Home Depot, all sorts of companies use it. So it's been a crazy journey, but that's what I do.
Yeah, so it's a very fascinating because quizzes are very intriguing because people want to know more about themselves, right? Like the topic of themselves is always a good topic. And yet it helps the online marketer because it actually lets them segment the feedback. So depending on how they score, now you know how to produce content that is exactly what they need or what they want to hear, correct?
Yeah, exactly. So it does both. I mean, people love talking about themselves. Like you said, it's the number one topic. And there was a study done that shows we talk about ourselves for 40% of our lives. So 4 out of 10 words you say in your life are about yourself. And the reason we like to do that is because in talking about ourselves, we also learn about ourselves. So the more you talk about yourself, the more you learn about yourself because you're hearing about yourself, other people are telling you about yourself, all that kind of stuff. So that's why quizzes have such a draw. But then as a marketer, you're able to segment people based on what they've told you and what they find out about themselves. And you're able to use that information to serve them much better. Instead of sending everybody the same stuff, you're now sending them stuff that they're actually interested in.
Sounds like a great program. Being able to use quizzes for the psychology of marketing to your right audience and attracting people to your brand. And so I'm really excited about it. In fact, you were introduced to me from another guest on our podcast, which was Brianna, and she uses your tool and was a raving fan and had actually already sent me information about your company prior to you reaching out about being on the podcast. So it was a very small circle within a very short amount of time that I heard about you in several different ways and about your company.
Yeah, it's been really neat. I mean, one of the things that we've been doing a lot of recently is just connecting with people and partnering with people. And it's been awesome to see the world get smaller and smaller. So instead of us trying to jump into situations cold and explain what we do, we've been able to build up a network. And we now have people on our team that work on this full time where it's just literally partnering up with other folks and having good conversations, connecting with them, hearing about their businesses and what they're trying to accomplish and how that plays into what we're doing. And it's been a wonderful thing. I mean, we've built up a massive network at this point, and it's been really, really awesome to be able to go in that way instead of going in the way of like trying to make sales directly and doing all this boiler room type stuff, because I much prefer the conversational, real, genuine connection aspect of building up a network through connections.
Absolutely. It's all about relationships. So I want to know, why did you choose the path of entrepreneurship?
Yeah, so it's kind of like one of those things where you don't choose the thug life chooses you. Except for, it's not the thug life, it's the internet marketing startup life. When I was 15, I was growing up in the Central Valley in California, which is farm country. It's kind of like the Midwest, but it's in California. So it's not what you think of when you think California. And as I was on the rise, I didn't really intend to start my own company when I was young. I just wanted to work somewhere because I grew up really poor. And so I wanted to work. And I tried to do the normal thing, work at American Eagle and Abercrombie and Little Caesars and Pizza Hut and McDonald's and Burger King. And I applied everywhere. like 40 or 50 of these entry level minimum wage jobs. But it was 2007 and it was the crux of the financial crisis. And the Central Valley in particular got hit really hard. So effective unemployment was 33%. And so a lot of people who were much more qualified than I was were also trying to work at McDonald's. And I did not get hired at a single one of those places. And so what I did was I kind of used my natural creativeness. I was always a very creative person. I was always building stuff. Like I built a teeter-totter in my backyard out of old tires and a giant board and a fallen tree when I was like 8 years old. And then I built a tree house and I dug an entire series of tunnels in my backyard. So we had like this escape route tunnels through my entire backyard. And I was always inventing and building and tinkering and all this kind of stuff. So what I decided to do was just go out and invent myself a job. And I knew how to install lawns and I knew how to install sprinkler systems because I had also done that in my backyard.
After you tore it up, right?
Yeah, after I tore it up, I was tasked with fixing it by putting in a sprinkler system. That was my quasi-punishment, although it was kind of fun, so it wasn't that bad. But I knew how to do that and I knew that people would pay for that. So I went out with my best friend, we spread flyers and we went on Craigslist and we just pitched the idea that we could do this for people and somebody responded and we vastly undercut the competition in terms of price because we were 15 years old and it didn't really matter how much money we made. We just wanted to make some. And that's how I got started building my own things. I got hooked on it. That first time we did a job, it was just incredible because we would get done at the end of the day. We ended up hiring a few other friends to help out. Get done at the end of the day, you've installed a lawn, you've installed a sprinkler system, you're sitting around having pizza, and it's just incredible to be like, that's what we did today. You know, we've got these pictures of this backyard started out as dirt and now it's grass and it looks great and the client's happy. And I was really, really hooked on not only the creation aspect of building something new, and in this case it was physical, but also just the satisfaction of having done the entire process from start to finish. So that was how I got chosen into the world of entrepreneurship. And I've had several companies between that and this one, but now this is the first one that's really proliferated into something that is growing at an exponential rate.
So you've been an entrepreneur since you were 15. That's a long time. And you said you've had many different jobs. And I like that when you opened up this conversation, you said, yeah, I've had a lot of successes, but a lot of fails. And now you're being really open with us saying, I've had several businesses, but this is the one that has really taken off. And so for anyone that's listening that has a business idea or is in the middle of a business, it may not be your last business, or maybe you need to part ways so you can have that better idea to really get a hold of that business that's going to take off for you the way you anticipate.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of failures in my past, and I don't even consider them failures. You could look at them from the outside in as it didn't work, and they didn't work. But at the same time, I learned something from all of it. So there was the lawn business, and I ended up having to stop doing that because I actually hurt myself when I was like 16 and had to stop doing that. And then I had another business. I was buying and selling used laptops. Had to stop doing that one because I was failing out of college, which is not a great idea. And then I had a couple other in between that and this one that, for whatever reason, just weren't working out. And it's not as if I wasn't trying hard on any of those. I was certainly putting in my full effort and the full extent of my capabilities at the time. But sometimes what you have and the opportunity just don't align. So what you have in terms of your skill set and what you're able to do and the people that you're able to pull in to help you just doesn't align with what you're trying to go after. And you want to give it a real shot and give it your all. But then if it doesn't work, you have to accept that and kind of take a step back and look at it from the outside in terms of why did that not work, and then move forward. I think the thing is that so many people are afraid of trying their best because they don't want to try their best and still fail, because that means you're not good enough. But it doesn't. It doesn't mean that you're not good enough. It means that for whatever reason, that particular way of trying didn't work. And I think it's actually the best thing in the world to legitimately try your best and still not accomplish the goal that you wanted, because it forces you to ask why and then figure out what you need to change, what you need to improve. Maybe it just isn't the right thing for you. You have to answer the real questions. If you never actually try your best, you could be doing a business for years and it kind of does okay, whatever, and you never really answer those questions in terms of, is this the right thing? So try your best, but also realize that your best might not work, and then be okay with that happening.
That's right. Those are some really, really good takeaways, especially from something that can be very traumatic for a lot of people, is wrapping their mind around the idea of something that they put their heart and soul, blood, sweat, and tears into and it not working out. And to have the wisdom to pause and reflect back and ask those important questions in which you just shared with us, Josh. So being CEO of your current company, the Quiz Collective Inc., what is your role? Like, what does a typical day look like for you as the CEO of this company?
Yeah, so I think there's a few things that I do all the time that are important, and I'm still learning as I go, but there's a few things. One of them is making sure that everybody within the team has what they need to be successful. And sometimes that means me jumping in and helping formulate a process. Sometimes that means just talking about a problem. Sometimes that means jumping into multiple things at the same time and being in on strategy, that kind of stuff. And sometimes that just means sending out an encouraging note, because that's incredibly important to keep things on the right track. So that's the number one thing, is just being almost a rover in terms of wherever there is a need for things, and then keeping ongoing connections with everybody who's working on stuff. Because within our company, people have individual responsibilities that are incredibly important to the company. And I do not have the ultimate say. They do. So they're the one that's actually handling marketing, or actually handling customer success, or actually handling engineering implementations. And so I have to make sure that we're on the same page, because there's a ton of trust that goes into that, where they are the one actually doing the stuff that goes out to our 40,000 customers, and I'm not approving everything. And I think that's the way it needs to work. But it also means that you have to keep these ongoing connections really, really strong. So that's the number one thing. And then the number two thing is just being an evangelist. So going out and doing a lot of shows. And we kind of talked about this before. I'm doing anywhere between 5 and I think the biggest week I ever did was 15 shows in 1 week. So podcasts or Facebook Lives or whatever it is, as a way of spreading the word about what we're doing. So evangelizing, and then kind of just jumping into the day-to-day and being part of our team.
That's excellent. I love that you put people in your team first. And some of the ways in which you said you support them seems to be, you have to be really, really in tune with their needs, because no one's going to raise their hand and say, I actually need help with this process, or I need you to jump in and give me a motivation here, or send out a note. You really need to be in tune with the workings of your entire company to see, you know what, this is what they need and this is when they need it. And then this is what they need from me here and this is when they need it. And setting that as your number one priority. I think that that's super valuable as business owners are listening, and either they have large teams or they are looking to expand their teams, and they're wondering, well, how does that shift how I spend my day? And what I heard was, you're not the doer any longer. You are really spreading the word and empowering the people you trust to service your 40,000 clients.
Yeah, and I think the reason that I find that so important is because when I was the doer and I was trying to do everything, I was trying to do sales calls, I was trying to do customer service, I was trying to do product development, I was trying to do all these things at the same time. I got so wrapped up in it that I couldn't think about the process. I couldn't think about the frameworks for what I was doing. I had no mental space for any of that. And that's where our folks are at for the most part, because Jane, who runs customer success and calls, will do 15 calls in a day. And Jess, who runs our partner network, will do 10 or 12 calls in a day. And you really have no time to stop and think about what's the process for these calls, that kind of stuff. And so it's incredibly helpful to have somebody step in who's done the job before and just say, hey, let's take a look at this one. Let's see how we can formulate this. Is there any particular issue that keeps coming up? And then be able to go across the board to the engineering side and talk with the engineers about what we might be able to implement that would help with customer service issue, that kind of stuff. So having done all of those roles in the past myself, it just makes me remember how tough it is when you are in that day-to-day. And it's incredible that there are folks that are doing those day-to-day jobs better than I was when I was doing them. But now I get the chance to be mentally free to the point where I can then jump in and look at the overarching strategy of things and work together with each individual person.
Okay, that's great. So when you first started your business, were you a man of one, or did you have a partner? Like, what did day one look like in your business for your business structure?
Yeah, so day one, it was myself and I had two partners, one of whom is no longer working with us, but the other one is. So there was three of us at the beginning. I was doing most of the marketing and sales stuff. The second one was doing engineering stuff. And then the third one was doing the design stuff. And we realized pretty quickly that you don't need a full-time design person until you have enough customers. So that ended up splitting ways pretty early on. But it was for the most part myself and Matt who runs our engineering and still runs our engineering.
So what has been your biggest productivity challenge growing from 3 people to where you're at now, just 4.5 years later?
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing is just making sure that everything is efficient. And the way that things get more efficient is to put in more processes, which was a hard hurdle for me to get past because in the early days, when it was just 3 and we were trying to figure out what the heck we're doing and how the heck to build it, all the challenges were creative challenges. So we didn't know how to build it and we had to figure out how to build it. We didn't know how to sell it. We had to figure out how to sell it. We didn't know how to do any of these things. And so we were constantly coming up with new stuff. But then as you grow and you start to find things that work, you kind of have to stop just doing new stuff all the time. And you have to figure out like, okay, if we do a onboarding call that goes XYZ, ABC in terms of the flow of that onboarding call, that works really well and that client's going to be happy. We need to replicate that 100 times a week, every single week as we onboard our clients. Same thing with customer service. If we talk to people in this way, where we have this kind of script that we run through in terms of the way that we're conversing with them, that works really well. They're going to be happy. That customer is not going to cancel. So you got to write that down and do it 10, 15 times a day, every single day. So the biggest challenge has been putting those processes in place, coming from a background where I'm always wanting to be creative. I'm always wanting to do something new. But sometimes, especially as you get bigger, what you actually need to do is do the same thing a bunch of times, because once you find stuff that does work well, you have to hold on to that. And then you can keep adding new stuff beyond, but you do have to put those processes in place.
So I hear you have a lot of consistency in your business now that you found what worked and maybe tweaking, but lots of consistency with the same processes over and over.
Yeah, a lot of consistency. And, I think one of the things that I've heard that's really cool is that consistency breeds creativity, which is counterintuitive to me, but it makes a lot of sense to where if you're doing the same things, then you're able to be creative within those processes. So here's something that we're doing. How do we make it better? If I keep doing the same thing over and over again, I'm going to get bored and my mind's going to wander to how could we make this a better process? And then that actually is more efficient than every single time you do that same task, you have to come up with it again from scratch, which takes all your mind power and you have no room to be creative. So we have gotten much, much more consistent than we ever were in the past.
See, and with your processes is what lets you expand and hire other people, because now you have clear expectations, you know how to train them, you have a checklist that says every onboarding, this is exactly what needs to happen. And so there's a level of accountability. I see nothing but upsides about processes. And I don't think anyone listening can argue with that. But going from the leap of being the doer and you're kind of in the weeds or in the forest, any of those analogies work, to saying, okay, I'm going to carve out the time to step back and really look at what's working and what's not working, and then going through the tedious task of documenting it. Can you explain to us how you were able to transition from being the doer, being in the weeds, to being the person that was creating the processes? What happened in your business or mindset that allowed you to switch from one to the other?
Yeah, so this is a good one because I think it will resonate with a lot of folks out there, because it's something that as creators, as entrepreneurs, we really tend to do, which is that we hold on too long to being the doer. And I totally did that. For 2 solid years, I held on to being the doer, and I tried to hire external people to come in and figure out the processes and things like that. And it did not work. We kept hiring and firing people. It was really, really depressing. But I got to a point where we had done that 4 times. And I got fed up with it. And I actually went on vacation. And this was actually just literally this time last year. I went on vacation and I came back and I realized nothing is going to move forward unless I'm freed up mentally to figure out what's next for us and put into place processes around these really big questions that we have in terms of like sales and marketing and all those types of things. And so what I did was I sat down and documented every single thing that I had been doing in terms of of working with our customers and answering customer questions and all sorts of stuff. I think it turned out to be something like 14 pages of links. So 14 pages of links to other pages, literally a giant glossary, just the most ridiculous thing. And I am not a organized person, so it was rough. It was just so much information. And then we took a gamble and basically we hired Jane and brought her in, and I gave her the 14 pages of links and said, go for it with all of our clients. And luckily it's worked out amazing. She's now our head of operations, and it's been an incredible shift, but it really took me banging my head against the wall for 2 years and making no progress because I refused to let go. And then finally, in a crude-ish way, putting together that process and then handing it to Jane. And now we've been able to repeat that in other areas. I've gotten significantly better at writing out processes. It's still something I'm working on, but we've done it 2 or 3 more times where we've created the process and then handed it off to somebody else with good success since then in other areas.
Okay, I have 2 questions for you. One, does Jane do your job better than you did it when you did the job?
Yes, yeah.
I kind of knew what the answer was because every time I expanded in my own business or I talk to any business owner that's holding on with white knuckles to tasks in their business or this belief that I can do it better and I've got this, and then they hand it over after they hand it to the right hire. Okay, so that's really important. So once you hand it over to the right person, you're like, why did I ever do that? That was not even my zone of genius. I was limiting myself from doing these bigger and better things. And so I think that that's really good. My second question is, do you empower your employees to make improvements and tweak the processes now that you've handed it over to them?
Yeah, absolutely. So once something's handed over, then it becomes a mutual conversation where we'll talk about processes, we'll talk about the way things are working as equals, because at that point, they know more than I do about what's going on day to day. And I've got all this overarching experience from doing this forever where I can kind of come in with my perspective. But when it comes down to it, we're having a level playing field conversation because they're the ones that are doing it and they know exactly what's going on. So it becomes a much more like strategy session type deal. It's not me coming up with new processes and implementing them at that point. It's us working together to improve what we're doing.
Yes, yes. So, my belief with processes is that it's a living and breathing document, something that's always ever changing. And unfortunately, I think a lot of people believe it's this manual that they create and then nobody ever reads again. So what's the use for it? But if you create it in a way that is got checklists and it's something that's referenced all the time, then you can always be making improvements on it and it serves you every single day instead of just one of those tasks that are just, no one's looking forward to this task. And so if you can't see the benefit of using it daily, I don't think anyone puts this at the top of their to-do list to move their business forward.
Yeah, exactly. And we have a very, very relevant example of that in our own business. We launched an influencer marketing program at the beginning of this year. And since launching it, we've hired Jess full-time that runs the program, and then also 3 or 4 different part-time people to help run it. And the process for that program has changed 7 or 8 times significantly since we've launched it. The core components of it have stayed the same, but everything else in terms of how we go about identifying and connecting with influencers has changed. And even the numbers that we're going off of and what we're sending out at what times and all that sort of stuff has changed. And so as we're changing it, it's a living document and it's getting better and better. And it's become a collaborative thing where we'll go back and forth in terms of this part's working and this part's not. And it makes it something that you can actually use, because if it's just set it and forget it, then it might work for a while. It might work under certain circumstances, but in the long run, not so much. So you have to be okay with the fact that whatever you sat down and spent 20 hours creating in the first place is not the end version. And if you try to make it the end version and never let it change, you're going to be wasting a ton of time and it's not going to work very well. So you have to have it be this living thing.
That's right. That's right. Okay, so just to give our audience or our listeners a little more clarity, where do your processes reside? Is it a program, software, document? Like, how is your team accessing these processes?
Yeah, so we use a lot of Google Docs, which is easy, but it's also symbolic because Google Docs are known for being things that you change. And so having them in that format just encourages the fact that they're not going to stay the same.
I love that. Yes, and you can all be collaborating on it in real time. Do you have any remote employees?
Yeah, we do. We have remote full-time. Matt, actually, who I started a company with, works down in LA and I'm in the Bay Area. And we have a part-time employee in Florida. And then within our own office, we have very, very flexible setups. So if you want to go home to see family for a week, it's totally fine. If you want to be on vacation for 3 weeks, but work for one of those weeks, whatever, you can call in. So we have a very flexible environment, which is good that we have the docs on a place where we can still access them.
Yes, yes. Wow, you just opened up a whole nother way to go into this interview with your remote and flexible employees. So I have to ask a couple more questions around that. How do you believe that being flexible with your employees like that has helped with productivity and with your company?
I think it's helped dramatically. I mean, you can't engineer productivity. Productivity is something that comes as a result of having other stuff in your life going well. And forcing people to be in the same place or to do the same thing every day is not the way that you get the most done. The way that you get the most done is you let your life kind of proliferate and you let your life develop and you let it happen and you do the things that make you happy, you do the things that bring you joy, you be with the people who you like to be around. And then as a result of that, you're able to have more energy and more mental clarity to get stuff done. So my take on it is if you need to be completely offline for 2 weeks, as I do sometimes, Matt does sometimes, and other employees do sometimes, then do it. If you need to work from home for 2 weeks straight, do it. If you want to work from, some other place for a while, do it. And it's all about just exploring what works best for you individually, and then being able to have the good energy to pour back into your work and into the company.
Wow, I think that's phenomenal. Generally, that kind of work is saved for the business owner or the entrepreneur, that kind of freedom. And the way that you've been able to identify how that's improved your productivity and wanted to share that all the way throughout your entire company and offering those same benefits to them, I think is a great idea. And I'm certain you are seeing those returns or you wouldn't still be doing it. And so I think that in addition to productivity, though, I would believe that it would create some sort of loyalty, employee loyalty to the company, that they're thankful for that opportunity to be with their family or work from at home when they have a kid sick, or all those things that would actually add stressors to their life and really not make them be present if you had forced them to come to the office, but being able to work with them and know that they're responsible, they're taking ownership of their role, that they know that they're going to meet their goals, and then just empowering them to do that in whichever way is best suited for them.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, even for me personally, it's there's some afternoons where I just should not be at work. Yeah. Some things, that I was really counting on didn't go the way I wanted to. And I just need a second to not be in the same environment. So I'll leave and go work out or go see a friend or go get a haircut or whatever. Just do something different that puts you in the right headspace. And I think that's so important because it is a long game and the results happen on this kind of regression line. There's lots of points around the line, but if you're able to continually refresh yourself, the line's going to keep going up. You're going to have consistent growth, both in your own life and in the work that you're doing. But if you try to force things, then that line can very quickly start to trend downwards and you're not even really apparent of why. You're not really sure why, but it's because you're not getting those little moments where you refresh. You're not getting those little moments where you're able to kind of recenter and get a breath of fresh air, and it adds up over time. So you really have to have the ability to reset and kind of continue on and do something else for a while when you don't want to continue plodding along on whatever you're working on.
Yes, I couldn't agree with you more. I actually just published episode 26 this week as we're recording this episode. And it was all about taking breaks and not pushing past your breaking point and how to create breaks when you feel like you don't have the time to take breaks, because the return on the investment, meaning if you just keep pushing through, you think you're being productive, but you're not. You need to relax, recharge, refuel. And so I gave a lot of tips on how to do that. And some of it's examples that you gave: get up, get fresh air, walk, go exercise, do things that are going to get your head and your body in the right place so that you can have the most productive time once you are back at work. So I absolutely couldn't agree with you more on that one.
Yeah, it's so important. And I think even extended times of being away are really, really important. I just got back from a 2-week vacation in Vietnam, so there wasn't a lot of connectivity. And when there was, it was night when it was day here. It's like 15 hours times difference. So you really can't do anything even if you wanted to. And it was really important because I was traveling with family. And so they were able to kind of see into my life from outside. And I was able to look at my own life from outside and kind of see which things are good, which things are bad, which things are pulling me down, which things are pulling me up. And it's very, very important to have that in mind, because you can force it. Like, you can force yourself into habits and routines that seemingly are pushing you in the right direction, but overall they can be really, really dragging you down. And I was even doing some of that myself. And it was just important to have that time where you're completely disconnected. So that's taking it one step further of having this extended time where you're disconnecting. But I think even daily you can do that. You can set aside time to meditate or to pray or to go to yoga or whatever it is you do that gets you into a different mindset, to where you can kind of have that outside perspective on what you're doing constantly.
Yes, I agree. I actually had just posted on my social media. So I do firearm training for sport, and I was at a 2-day class for 9 hours a day, and I go by myself. I don't know anybody. And I go there so that I can invest in myself by training. And it's challenging both mentally and physically. But one of the takeaways that I had shared on my social media was that having that time to disconnect and get away and be in the outdoors is that I get some of my best business ideas. When I got back to the office today, I think I had like 12 emails to myself, where I would go back and sit down and I'd email an idea to myself or a thought that I had. And it was that taking that break away from family, away from other inputs, that it's a very quiet time for me, that I'm able to focus, that kind of lets you rise above your day to day and really think bigger. I couldn't even imagine the power of that multiplying it over 2 weeks of having that focused, reflective time. And so I think that that is very, very powerful for anyone that's listening. If you're beating your head against the wall and you're challenged and you feel like you're not taking some headway, the best, most productive use of your time may be to take a step away just to reflect in however you feel that you need to do that, whether it be in Vietnam or a sport that you enjoy or a 2-day staycation for yourself where you kind of lock yourself in a hotel room by yourself. So there's so many different options, but I really, really believe that that is a very powerful tip for many people listening.
Yeah, and especially for anybody who's starting a company, or if you're an entrepreneur, you tend to feel as if everything hinges on you. And that's my natural tendency as well. And I consistently slip back into it, and I have to get pulled out of it by the people that are around me. And going away for a while will remind you that you're not, because things will go on. Maybe things dissipate and it doesn't work out while you're gone, whatever. Either way, you realize it's not the end of the world. Like, the world doesn't end because you're gone, because you come back and the world's still there. So you just kind of remind yourself that it's not all on you. And if you try to live like it's all on you, you're just going to wear yourself out. You can't force things. Again, like, you can't force things to work. So if you feel as if you are the only one responsible for things working, you're going to dig yourself into a hole. So being away for an extended period of time helps you realize that it's not all on your shoulders.
Yes, because if you were gone for 2 weeks and your company still ran without you, when you come back, you can't give me the excuse, well, I was so busy reacting to my emails all day because people needed me and they needed me to respond and they needed me to answer that I couldn't get my real work done. That's BS, because they just went 2 weeks without you, right? Not saying that that's your case, but anyone that's listening, that once you're able to get away, when you come back, you're not going to get into those traps of, they need me, I need to respond, I have to put these fires out. Because the truth is that if you hire the right team around you and you empower them, they should be able to find solutions without you in those cases, or at least you don't need to jump in and answer every concern or issue right then and there. You know, you can do it at a time that's most convenient after you've got your most important work done for the day.
Yeah, exactly. And when you put yourself in those positions where you do feel like you have to answer everything, you have to be available, you have to be checking on things all the time, then you're not able to really think clearly. You're not able to come up with new ideas. You're not able to solve problems. You're not able to interface with people well either. And you have to disconnect from that. And I'm guilty of falling into the trap of feeling like I need to do the same stuff every day, even though at this point I don't need to do anything every day because we have people that are handling everything better than I could again. And so I need to remember that my role now is to be thinking about what's next, to be thinking about the future, all that kind of stuff. And it's really, really easy to want to, it's almost like a lull back into being involved with the day-to-day and being part of what's happening at every single minute. But if you do that, then it's really detrimental because you're not able to think about things clearly. So you do have to remember that once you have those good people in place, and it's very important that they're good people because there's a small percentage of folks that can actually do these types of things. But once you have them, you have to trust them to do their job, and then you have to do your job.
Absolutely, absolutely. So Josh, share with us some of the ways in which you increasing and improving your personal productivity has helped your business and you personally.
Yeah, so I've gotten really, really crazy with my personal productivity, as I tend to do with anything I really jump into. I just go for it pretty much more than anybody else ever would. So I've gotten very, very mechanized in terms of what my day looks like. So now I get up at 4 a.m. I do a very focused meditation and prayer right when I wake up. And then I do some focused work for an hour. And then I work out in the morning. And then I have breakfast. And then I go to work. And then I go through my work day. And then at the end of the day, I try to set up a meeting with somebody that's not from work. So a friend or just roommates or whatever, to do some of that kind of outside in type of stuff where I'm talking about something completely different and not thinking about work. So I have this routine that I do pretty much every single day, and it's a very laid out thing. And what's been incredible about it is that it's allowed me to get so much more done. Like I get done in that early morning hour from 4 to 5 a.m. almost as much as I used to do in an entire day 4 or 5 years ago. And then that's before I even work out or have breakfast. So it's crazy how blocking out time and building in not distractions, but different mental spaces throughout the day. So, waking up and having the early morning hour, then working out, which is a different type of mental space, and then going to the office, which is different because there's other people around. And then at the end of the day, hanging out with other people that aren't from work, that aren't in your industry at all or anything like that, kind of having that mental space. Blocking out different times through the day allows you to jump from thing to thing and be fully invested in whatever it is that's happening. So it's really, really, really increased the amount of stuff that I get done in one day. So the effect that that's had on the business is that when I do need to jump into something new, so at the beginning of this year, that was building our influencer marketing program. Later this year, it was building our PR program, so public relations stuff. When I do need to do something new, it happens very quickly because I have so much time because of the way that things are blocked out. So those are the ways it's really helped. The ways that it has hurt, because I think that's really important as well, is that as I tend to do, I took it too far and got too invested in my habits and too invested in these routines that had helped me get to where things are now. And I started cutting out things that I thought were getting in the way. So even silly things like going out for beers that I thought were getting in the way, but were actually really beneficial because those were times where I was connecting with people and things like that. So I took it a bit too far, and now I've had to readjust back to where there is a routine, there is a lot I'm getting done, but I'm also flexible with it. If something comes up and a friend's in town, I'm not going to say no because I need to be up at 4 a.m. to work out. So had to kind of change things around as I go, but there have been a ton of benefits to having the routine. But then the latest version of it is having a routine, but being flexible with it.
Oh my gosh, just that in itself has given me a few nugget takeaways for our listeners. First of all, I can see that you reevaluate what's working and not working in every aspect of your life, whether it had been with employees or business growth or business failures or just simply your routine. You're always checking to see, is this working for me? If it's not, how can I tweak it? And then the other takeaway was that it seems though that over time, because you said 4 or 5 years ago, that wasn't the case. So at some point you made the commitment to have this kind of block schedule, routines, rituals, and then you stayed very consistent with it. What would you credit to being able to be so consistent with those routines?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I think there's a lot of things, and you could probably delve up a bunch of psychological stuff about my childhood and things like that. And I do meet with the executive coach all the time. So we actually talk about how different things from the past play into the ability to do the stuff that I do now. I think part of it is growing up in a very impoverished home and realizing that if I wanted to change things, I would need to kind of put in the effort myself. And then part of it is fitness, because in fitness, you realize really early on that if you do something every day and then you continue to get better at that thing you're doing. So if you go to the gym every day, but then you do more and more every single day, you will see the results. But it takes a really long time, like a year, before you actually see a real change. And I've always been into fitness. I was playing sports when I was, I think, 4 years old. I started playing soccer. And ever since then, I've loved it. And it's taught me that the longer you do something, and the more you practice at it, and by practice, I mean doing it, but also learning what you're doing right and doing wrong and improving on the parts you're doing wrong, focusing on the parts you're doing right, you will get the results, but it takes a long time and you have to be incredibly consistent. So that's the biggest thing that's taught me about the power of consistency.
Very good. Very good. So Josh, I have to share this one last thing with you before we close up. You've actually helped me. So right before we got on this interview, my girlfriend texted me and said, hey, do you want to go to the movies and a dinner with a couple girlfriends Thursday night? The movie starts at 7:45. Are you in? And I literally texted her back and I was like, can we do that on the weekend? I'm up at 4:45 in the morning. That's a little late for me. I might be sleeping during the movie. So, Josh, she may not be coming in from out of town, but it is her birthday. And so I think I can break my strict little schedule and routine and say, you know what, I'm going to take one for the team and go have a good time and have drinks and a movie with my girlfriend. And so I'll have to thank you, Josh, for this because she's waiting for me to text her back when we're done with this interview.
I love that. I love that. And the thing that I've learned in kind of coming to that stark realization is that it actually allows me to get more done because I feel great in the morning. It's like I reconnected with a friend. We had an awesome conversation. Maybe I'm even a little hungover, but I actually get more done even with that hangover than I would had I said no, gone to bed early, woke up early, and kept my routine because I'd be kicking myself and I'd feel guilty and I'd feel unfulfilled. So you end up getting more done, even though it doesn't seem like you will in the first place.
I agree. You know, it's those times where you can have a timeout that it actually fuels you. And we have to have those good times, and we're not robots. And I think that the true testament to our consistency and our commitment to the lives that we want is that when things don't go our way, are we still able to stay consistent and work towards our goals? We get sick, we have family in town, we go on vacations. Sometimes if our habits aren't really rooted in, it's those very things that will break that habit chain. And then now we're not doing the things that are really helping us with achieving our goals and improving our productivity. So I actually like the idea of thinking of this as a positive test in that can I go and have both? Can I have a girls' night out every once in a while on a Thursday night and still wake up and do my routine and my schedule and have a productive day the next day? And Josh, I'm going to say yes to that. Yes, I know I can do that. So before we end today, Josh, can you share with our listeners how they can learn more about you or reach out to you or even find out how your product about quizzes can help them in their businesses?
Yeah, definitely. So the main places that I kind of hang out online, I guess, are LinkedIn and Twitter. On LinkedIn, you can just search for Josh Haynam. I'm the only Josh Haynam in the world, so I will be the only one that shows up. And then on Twitter, I am at @jhaynam, and I have conversations with people all the time through those messaging platforms. And then our actual product is at tryinteract.com. So TRYinteract.com.
Excellent, Josh. Thank you so much for being an amazing, amazing guest. I really enjoyed this. I know our listeners got a ton about it. And I can't wait to re-listen to this episode myself, because that's when I also take away my own learnings and I debrief those in the intro for our listeners. And I think this is going to be a long list of amazing nuggets and takeaways. So thank you very, very much, Josh. And I hope you have a productive day.
Yeah, thank you again for having me on. I really appreciate it.
I have loved having you listen to Productivity Straight Talk, but I need to be straight with you. No change, no change. Without taking action, nothing will change for you or your business. So based on what you learned today from Josh, what will you take action on today? I'm serious. Take a moment. You've already invested the last 30 to 40 minutes in this episode, learning from Josh and hearing all of his expertise on how to grow a business and how to grow a team fast and how processes are really, really going to help you do that. So what did you take away from today's episode that you want to execute in your business and life? Honestly, having great ideas and learning and knowledge, those are all amazing things, but alone, they will not grow your business. So based on what you learned, what do you want to take action on today? To share your actionables and receive support, guidance, and motivation from entrepreneurs just like you, join us on the inside of the Productivity Straight Talk private community. And you can join by going to productivitycommunity.com. Leave me your name and email address, and I will send you a link directly inside to join us. And if you've enjoyed this episode, I would be so grateful if you would share it with another entrepreneur who you feel would find it valuable. The growth of this podcast is really based on word of mouth and sharing it with other entrepreneurs that you talk to on a daily basis. Have you had a conversation with somebody recently about processes? Were they wondering, how do they get started? How do they empower their team to take ownership over those processes? So if you would, I would love for you to forward to a fellow entrepreneur who can definitely gain insights and knowledge and then take action from what was shared from Josh today. I have an opportunity that I would love to share with you today. And that opportunity is that in 2018, I have decided that I am going to be doing a few free 30-minute success breakthrough sessions a month. And I would love for you, my listeners of Productivity Straight Talk, to take advantage of that. In our success breakthrough session and our time together, I'm going to show you how to maximize your profits by reclaiming 5 hours per week using personal productivity strategies tailored for you. These are not generic strategies. These are not a one-size-fits-all. This is going to be customized strategies to meet you right where you're at, to let you reclaim 5 hours to invest in your highest and best activities. At this time in your life and business, it may be revenue-generating activities that will increase your profits. Or perhaps you're where you want to be in your profits and revenue, but you need more time with your family, with your friends, for yourself, or your hobbies. That is what we're going to be focusing on in this session. So if you are interested, I invite you to go apply, and you can apply by going to successbreakthroughsession.com. Again, that's successbreakthroughsession.com. It takes just a few minutes to apply. Myself or my team will be in touch with you about next steps. So I invite you, don't be listening to this and saying, oh, that's for the other person listening. It's only you with these earbuds in your ear, or it's only you sitting in your car listening to me. I'm talking to you. If you've wondered what it's like to work with me, or what would it be like to get some advice personalized directly to me, then I invite you to go apply for your own Success Breakthrough session. Well, that's my straight talk for you today. And until next time, have a productive week.